Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Converge Consulting's webinar on recruitment. We are very pleased today to have joining us Barbara Coward, Principal of Enrollment Strategies. But before we dive into the webinar, let me welcome you and thank you for taking the time out of your busy afternoon or morning if you're joining us from the West Coast to spend some time with us. We know that recruitment at the graduate level and the adult student level is kind of at an all-time high in relation to people's interest in the topic and understanding that it's really time to take a look at our practices and do all that we can to ensure that we are converting students in the best ways possible. So we appreciate the really, quite frankly, huge interest in this webinar. We've had a significant number of folks who signed up for this webinar, and in fact, probably one of our highest enrollments. So we know this is a topic that's very important to all of you, and we are pleased at Converge to have Barbara joining us. Before I kind of turn things over to Barbara to get started, I just wanted to quickly mention two items. First off, we will be posting our opportunity to register for our next upcoming webinar, which will also be one I think that's very helpful to the recruitment audience. The webinar's focus is really on utilizing data to develop academic programs, and data being what's the enrollment potential, that will really being certain that you're developing academic programs that will really help to grow your enrollment. So that will be available for registration probably within the next day or two, and that's our next upcoming free webinar. I also want to mention, and again, I know Barbara's going to mention at the end of her session about the Converge 2014 conference coming up in Nashville in October. We are coming up on the end of our early bird registration, and we certainly want to encourage those of you who have responsibilities for recruitment as well as marketing that ties directly to enrollment to take a look at our website. We're pleased with the speakers that we have and are very excited to have that opportunity to have further conversation with all of you at that conference. So we'd love to see you in Nashville. Please join us. Without much further ado, let me go ahead and introduce Barbara Coward. Converge Consulting is pleased to have Barbara as a partner and someone who works with us and assists us in our processes in working with schools throughout the country. Barbara is the founder and principal of Enrollment Strategies, which is a strategic marketing and consulting services firm that utilizes best practices in relationship to both domestic as well as international business schools specifically. Barbara has a lot of firsthand knowledge based on her expertise in recruitment for different institutions that she did when she worked directly in higher education in both the U.S. as well as the U.K. So we're pleased to have Barbara join us for this webinar and lead this conversation. Barbara, let me go ahead and turn things over to you. I do know participants, we will have the opportunity to submit questions throughout the presentation today, and then at the end of our time, once Barbara's done presenting, we'll go through and do a Q&A session to make sure you get your questions answered. So feel free to type in questions as they come up, and Barbara will address those at the end. Barbara, take it away. A Midsummer Recruiter's Dream.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Brenda, and thank you for the opportunity to be here today. I'm delighted to have this chance to talk to you all about marketing and recruitment strategies. I know that everyone has very busy schedules and full days, so we truly appreciate your time. And my goal for the next hour is to make it informative, educational, and fun. I know that working in higher education can be challenging at times with enrollment goals and student demands. As Brenda had mentioned, I have worked for a couple universities, both here and abroad in the UK, so I know I've been there. So I want you to consider this as your hour to escape from day-to-day pressures and for an opportunity to learn and bring back fresh ideas to your organization. And I also invite you to challenge the way you think about marketing. And then in the process, maybe we can find a way to relieve those day-to-day pressures and make recruitment easier and more effective in the process. So when I started thinking about putting together this webinar for you, I thought about the time of year. And what I typically do when I write blogs or I do presentations is I embrace a seasonal theme, just to make it a little bit more interesting. So here we are in late July, midsummer, and so it made me start thinking of the play, A Midsummer Night's Dream. And so I started thinking about the power of words, because when it comes to marketing and recruiting, it's all about the communication. And so I thought about how Shakespeare's writing has captured attentions for centuries. Now, I just want to say, do not worry. This is not going to be a class on Shakespeare. If you saw what my grade was in junior high English on a Shakespeare book, you would not want me to teach Shakespeare. But I just thought that some of the lessons and his stories and his books and plays would be a fun way to communicate some of the concepts I wanted to get across. One more thing I want to mention, as Brenda had said, my expertise really and my background is in business school admissions and marketing. So throughout the presentation, you'll see some examples from business schools. But I just want to let you know that I know we have a wide variety of people, participants from colleges and universities and different graduate programs, seminaries, engineering programs across the board. So all of these ideas and the examples can be applied not just to business schools, but to other programs as well. Okay, so let's get started. And let's see, there we go. So I found this quote about William Shakespeare, and I thought it was a great quote. He was not of an age, but for all time. Okay, and just think about that quote. It really resonates with me. Okay, now imagine in your universities, if your messaging lasted not just for a minute, but for all time. Think of the power that would bring. Okay, and that's what inbound marketing does. Okay. So I'm going to do a little overview here. Some of you have heard of the term outbound marketing and inbound marketing. So for those, it'll be a refresher. For other people who maybe are not familiar, just kind of an update of where things are in marketing these days. I always want to say the trend, but it's much more than a trend. It's believed to be here to stay because it's proven, it works, it has results. That traditional outbound methods are out. Okay, what are traditional outbound marketing methods? Things like advertising, cold calls, TV, billboards. What are the problems with those? Communication is one way. If you picture yourself driving along the highway going 55 miles an hour, and you see a billboard, it's one-dimensional. There's no way to have a conversation with that billboard. Communication is one way. Another challenge is it can't be shared or go viral. If it's a great message, if it's a brand you're excited about and it really captured your attention, you can't easily share it with your friends. You have to wait till you stop the car, call somebody, send an email. It's difficult. It's not easy to do that. So it can't go viral. And one of the other challenges is it just doesn't last, okay? And if you're working in higher ed and even in corporate sector and you spend money on advertising billboards, once you spend it, it's gone. So that does have its limitations. Doesn't mean that you'd never want to use it, and many times you're doing it in conjunction with an inbound marketing campaign. But here's what makes inbound marketing great and why it's in. And when we talk about inbound marketing, we're referring to things like search engines, blogs, social media, ebooks, infographics. And what's great about it is, unlike the billboard that you drive past, it's interactive and two-way. So if somebody puts a blog up, you can actually converse and make comments and engage with it. Somebody puts a social media post up, you can do that as well. Again, you have a two-way dialogue, and it can easily be shared and go viral. And when you think about the return on investment of your marketing dollars and stretching budgets, and all university budgets are always finite and limited, you just get a lot more bang for the buck. You have a message out there and have it, go viral and be shared, and it lasts. So, for example, blogs that I've written, actually for my own site, a couple of years old, I'm still getting hits on them today. Okay, it was a time to write it and produce a blog article way back when, and I'm still seeing the return today. Same thing goes true with higher education marketing. Excuse me. So another way to look at it is that with outbound marketing, you have to go to great effort and expense to find customers. With inbound marketing, it makes it easy for them to find you. You just produce great content, whether it's in a blog, an ebook, social media, your website, content, and prospects will find you, okay? Instead of you having to go to find them, they come to find you. And it's also nice because it's not interrupted marketing, okay? It's permission-based marketing, okay? So you're not interrupting them. I have an example yesterday where I was on a call, actually with a university in Canada, and I was waiting for another call to come in for somebody joining me on the call, and I got a call from breast cancer research. Wonderful cause, important call. It was in the middle of a call with a client. And again, that is something where it's interruption marketing. So, how different ways and better ways perhaps for organizations to reach customers and increase their brand awareness. Do that again through blogs, through social media, have them find you. Okay. So here we go back to our friend, Mr. Shakespeare. Okay. And again, he started thinking about, why has he been popular for 400 years? 400 years. Why? Okay. Simple answer, he wrote amazing dialogue. Okay. I know some of us are more fans of Shakespeare than others, but nonetheless, you can't argue the fact that he's been around for a long time. And I know my high schooler is reading Shakespeare right now. I did in junior high. All the different festivals that go on throughout the world. Again, his dialogue has resonated for centuries. And why is that? I thought this was a nice quote. He understood the power of language. He could paint landscapes with his words, and he created compelling characters. Okay, he just had this ability through language, through his books, to draw you in. Okay, so what I'm advocating here today is to literally, quite literally, take a page out of his playbook. Okay. Now this is not, let me have a caveat here. I'm not advocating that we turn our website content into poetry at all. But again, when it comes to the content, when it comes to the dialogue, when it comes to creating characters, to borrow from him. So how can we do that? Number one, use the power of language to draw an emotional connection with prospects. Words are so powerful, and how they're said are so powerful. So again, and I've seen this a lot with websites, not all, but quite a number of them, where information is presented in terms of kind of facts and figures and features, really write in a way and present content that's going to establish an emotional connection with the reader, with your prospect, and use language to do that. It's like almost being an artist with a paintbrush. The other thing is to address human needs and wants. And again, one of the other challenges, and I'll raise my hand in terms of being guilty of this, certainly when I was working in universities, we're also caught up in all the great things that are happening, and they're great things, and we want to promote them, and we should promote them. Perhaps you were just moved up in the rankings, or a faculty member presented some cutting-edge research recently, or you name it, anything that's exciting. You want to shout it from the rooftops. You want to put those messages out on your social media. Okay, you always have to kind of go back, from my perspective, to think about the person reading that, and why does that matter to them? That's great, but how does it help them? So for example, if it's a faculty member that's just presented some cutting-edge research, that's great, but how is that going to create an exceptional educational experience for the prospective student who wants to come there? Okay, so the institution, I'm giving another example, has moved up into the rankings. That's great. We obviously like that as working in marketing in higher education. But what does that do for the prospective student? I would always tell them when I did information sessions for MBA programs is, what's great is when you're putting together your resume or updating your LinkedIn profile, that means you can take that and put it proudly on your profile in education, to give that kite mark, to give that accolade, so it's recognized. So again, it's always, I always want to say, you always want to write from the outside in rather than the inside out. And again, addressing what matters to them. And in terms of the needs and wants, we always kind of think, okay, why are they coming here? It's for education, it's to get the degree, but usually it's something much more than that, much deeper, and it's a challenge, to kind of dive in deeper and figure out what that is. And here we come into the topic of segmentation too, because not everyone who's looking and interested in your university is looking for the same thing. Sure, they might all be, I'm using my example again because it's familiar to me, the MBA. Yeah, they all might want an MBA, but perhaps they all want it for different reasons. Somebody might want it to move up in their company. Somebody else might want it to transition to a new industry. Somebody might want to start their own business. I had candidates I worked with that wanted to get it because their kids were growing up and they wanted to set an example to their kids the importance of education. So there's all these different meanings and purposes, and to think about that very carefully and to segment your market in terms of what really is what matters to them. What are their, I'm kind of equivalent about this term, but it really does speak to kind of the issues that we're addressing. What are their pain points? What are we trying to do to solve for them? People who are making a transition have, an issue, a challenge that they want to solve. Maybe they've reached a plateau in their career, they want to move up. Maybe they want to just pursue a whole different path that they never had before. So how can your institution solve that for them? And that's what you want to communicate in the writing and the content of what you put out on your website, on your blogs, in the ebooks. How can you solve that? And how can you do that better than another institution? That's a golden opportunity there. Okay. And along the same lines is overcoming the hurdles. There's always the hurdles, barriers to entry, as we like to say in marketing, to get prospects over the hurdle to come to your institution. One of them is often, for graduate students, balancing work and family. You have busy careers. People aren't working 8 hours a day anymore. Our 24/7 digital culture is they're working around the clock. So how are they going to possibly fit, graduate studies into an already busy life, and how can we show them that? This is going a little bit out topic in terms of having actually written content, but I remember again facilitating information sessions, and we always brought in alumni who were fabulous, talk about social proof. And again, that concern was addressed by prospective students, and we had an alum who said, yeah, you know what, you can still work out, you can still do this, but you're just going to spend a little bit less time on it. Just really kind of breaking it down and showing how it's possible. And that's why communication and content is so important to address all of these goals, all of these concerns, so you can make it seem possible, doable, and realistic to get prospects to move closer and further down the pipeline. Okay. And again, paint a picture of what it would be like to be in your program. I know quite literally a lot of institutions are doing this, certainly, and I advocate with the using a lot of visuals. The old saying of a picture is worth 1,000 words. I had written a blog some time ago about an interesting concept, proven research on the monkey brain, and I didn't bring the statistics in front of me here, but I can always look it up and give that to you later, about how people process information and how it's so much easier to process information with visuals than with words. So all this that I'm having right here and all these words on this particular slide, by the end of the day, 6 months from now, if I asked you to remember what I talked about, I bet it'll be one of the pictures. And this is a little teaser. It will probably be the one at the end that you'll remember. So again, the importance of using visuals to tell your story, to do your content. And a lot of schools I've seen lately are embracing video to do that. So that's another topic in and of itself. Okay. Also, going back to Shakespeare, creating compelling characters. Now here's a novel idea. I bet you don't think of your students, alumni, and your faculty as characters. But really what you want to do is bring your university to life. Just by nature of what I do, I'm always going to say business school, so I had to catch myself. But bring your programs to life. And how do you do that? Through stories, through student stories, alumni, faculty. Make them characters. It's interesting. I was at the MBA tour in DC. It's a recruiting fair on Monday night, and I sat in a couple sessions. One was delivered by the assistant director at Cornell University, who was phenomenal. And I was there really just to see the questions that were being asked, because I like to stay close to, the prospects and see what's on their minds and concerns and what they're looking for. And one prospective student raised his hand and he said, "You told this story about, Martha Stewart's chef." I mean, this is true. One of her chefs is a student on the Cornell MBA. You told that story about, her. Tell me some other stories about your students. They love these student stories and alumni stories. So again, think of them as compelling characters. And another way to look at it is, I go back into thinking, what you all watch on TV, movies you like. I am a confessed Downton Abbey addict. I love the show. I am counting the days till it starts again. I saw something that is going to begin again in January. I'm not one who likes winter, but I'll sure be counting the days, so that kicks on again. But I think about the compelling characters in the show and which ones really, stand in my mind, and I can't get them out of my head. So in a way, that's what you want to do with your writing and your content, is to tell stories that people will resonate, with your prospects, about your students, about your alumni. I've seen a lot too recently, certainly with the World Cup and other events, that universities, MBA programs would feature some kind of a connection. And what's neat about that too is if it's connected to a current event, there's a process in the mind, and again, I was not a science major at all in college, so I'll have to look this up to provide more information, but it becomes sticky. And so that whenever they, say it's a World Cup, you put something on social media about how you have a connection with your school there, whenever they're watching the World Cup, they think about your institution, and that's really cool. And probably most important is to write for humans. Okay, I think we have a tendency, and again, I know I've done this in the past, where we think, okay, university talks to students, or company is talking to customers. Well, guess what? At the end of the day, we're all people, and we want to write for humans. And it reminded me of this quote that I thought was kind of fun. If we spoke to our friends the way we speak to our prospects, they wouldn't be our friends anymore. Okay? I'll say it again. If we spoke to our friends the way we speak to our prospects, they wouldn't be our friends anymore. Again, it's all about making the human connection. And I think this is also a place and time to mention something I forgot to mention earlier. Being a serious and being in higher ed and the product that's being delivered, educating people, and with accreditation, with all the accolades and certainly the accomplishments and achievements of faculty, it's a serious business. There's no doubt about it. But it doesn't mean to say that you can't be professional and also have kind of a lighter touch. They're not mutually exclusive. Okay, so that goes back to writing for humans. Connect, be clear, write simply, just really do it in a way that people can really, grab on and can relate to what you're saying. So this is kind of a headliner kind of point. If I was going to say, remember one thing on this presentation, it would be this. To remember, in order to attract new prospects, you need to entertain as well as inform. Okay, and it goes back a little bit to what I was saying earlier. It's okay if it's a serious institution like higher ed for university to be entertaining in your message as well as informing. The fact of the matter is there is so much competing for our attention these days. Think about how many emails you got today. Think about all the ads. We got work on our mind, we got families, all of that. How are you going to possibly break through all that clutter to capture the attention of your prospects? And if you look at it this way, entertainment is really a vehicle to help you get there. Okay? It's like a key to open the door. Okay? So again, one thing that you've noticed in terms of the journalism and the news industry too is how some of the hardcore news, and I think back in the day when I was growing up with Walter Cronkite and the news, very serious, and how today it's there's a little bit more entertainment involved. I mean, even when you think about kind of the pseudo news of comedy shows with Jon Stewart, with Stephen Colbert, even Jimmy Fallon. I mean, I bet you wouldn't think of channeling Jimmy Fallon when you're writing content for your university. But again, this is what captures people's attention. And how can you do that in a way that marries that entertainment and having a little bit of fun and making that human connection with still being professional and still being serious? It's like walking that fine line. And if you can do both, that informs and entertains, wow, that is pretty powerful. So Again, I promise this isn't going to be a presentation all about Shakespeare, but I thought as we go a little further, it might be worth to stop for a moment and kind of review what A Midsummer Night's Dream is all about, and they'll help to illustrate some of the points that I wanted to make. So, just in short, it's about two sets of couples. It's the Bard's original wedding play, whose romantic cross purposes play out in the woods. Okay, but I think what I wanted to emphasize here, it's really about emotions. It's playing to events and themes that still resonate with us today, that are human connections, love, dreams, imagination. Okay. And so emotions really, tap into who we are. And if we can incorporate more of that into our messaging, again, done in a professional way, that's how you're going to win the hearts and the minds of your prospects and build that closer relationship to your business school. Okay? I mean, can you imagine for a moment if Shakespeare described his characters in his plays by listing all their credentials and all their facts and figures? I mean, we probably wouldn't be reading him today. So you want to write for attention. People forget facts. You want to write for attention. Okay. And a way to look at it too is think about when you made your decision to attend your college or your graduate program. What factored into your decision? How did you feel at the time? What do you remember most? And that's something that to incorporate in terms of when you're producing content, when you're trying to connect with your prospective students to get them to take the next step. How are you going to do that? What is going through their minds? And to really kind of tap into a deeper level with that. And again, higher education. Now, this is where, there's always some debate. Are students customers? Is it really a purchase? And in the end of the day, yes, it is a purchase. People are paying money to attend institutions, and it's a very emotional one. And so what happens with very emotional and expensive purchases is customers, prospect students, they do a lot of research. They need a lot of validation. You need a lot of proof points. You need social proof. It's a complex and it's involved and it's often a lengthy process. So again, to kind of meet them on your level and to first recognize that and to address your messaging accordingly, it just helps to have that in mind. Okay. So what is our goal as higher education marketers? Okay. One, we want to make prospective students fall in love with your university. We also want to show how their program can help them achieve their dreams. I always kind of say when you're working in higher education, if you're filling out a form and it says, what industry are you working in? Do you work in consulting? Do you work in manufacturing? Do you work in healthcare? And you check off the box that says higher education. I actually would argue that we're working in the dream business, because what we're doing is we're helping people, whether it's undergraduates going to choosing a college, or graduate students choosing an engineering program, or graduate students looking to for theology schools, going to med school, law school, whatever, is we're helping them achieve their dreams. I have a 16-year-old right now who's going to be entering junior, and he wants to be a pilot. That's all we hear about day in and day out night. He wants to be a pilot, okay? So the college that's going to attract him is one that's going to connect with him in terms of helping him achieve his dream of being a pilot. So actually, since we have a wide variety of people here, if anyone here works with universities that have programs that can lead to that career path, let me know. I know he'll be happy to hear about them. He's doing a lot of research now. Okay. And then also use some creativity to make your program stand out. Be creative. There's all sorts of things we can do. And just, again, use imagination. And many schools are often saying the same thing. So how can you stand out and be a little bit different? So here, this is just something I found yesterday. So I kind of popped this into the presentation at the last minute. So I apologize. It's not as whizzy in terms of design as the other pages. But it just goes to that point of dreams. I thought this was a great post I saw on Wharton's Facebook account. It's the students saying, best friend is moving to Philly next week. Welcome to Wharton. We're definitely one step closer to our startup dream. And then Wharton replying, we hope you do make your startup dreams come true. Again, going back to the dreams. So at this point, I thought I would dive a little deeper into Shakespeare's play, because there's some really cool lines there, and I thought I'd provide a little creativity in terms of what we can learn to do things a little different in terms of reaching out to prospective students and in terms of our marketing message. So here's a line right here. Love looks not with the eyes, but with the mind. Now, at this point, I wish I was a Shakespearean actor. I think of that, what was that movie with Gwyneth Paltrow? Was it Shakespeare in Love? I forget who the actor was, but you almost want somebody with that voice to tell these lines. So I apologize, I don't have that. But here's the line itself. Okay, so with this line, love looks with the mind. What can we take away from this? Okay. Again, something I talked about earlier. How can you capture the attention of prospects through their imagination rather than facts and figures? Okay. It's important. I'm not saying don't have the facts and figures. Definitely want to put out the accolades and, terms of, what the class size is, test scores, all of that, GPA range, all of that is important. I'm just saying not to do that exclusively without, kind of putting into context of the other aspects and experiences that come with your institution, and to present it in a way that's engaging. That's why infographics are so great. They're entertaining. Goes back to that theme of entertainment. So again, think about ways to do that. And that's, again, I could talk a lot about storytelling, but storytelling has been proven to be the most effective way to connect with people, and it resonates and it sticks with them, and to think about storytelling for your communications. Okay. The other thing, takeaway lesson from that line, thinking with the minds, is that prospective student decision making isn't rational in terms of the school's timetable. Okay, so for example, we often set deadlines in our communications, but going back to what I said earlier about focusing on the prospective student, does it meet their needs? I had an experience once where recruited a really top-notch executive MBA student, and we went through the process, the rational process. You meet, you have an informational interview, they come to an information session, they apply, you bring that application to the admissions committee, you present that, they accept the student, you send an offer letter back, they pay a deposit, boom, 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 and you're going through the line, and lo and behold, start of the year, that person will be a matriculant and will be in the class. Well, guess what happened? You get that phone call during the summer melt. Gosh, guess what happened? I got a promotion, and really, I just can't come this year. There's no way I can do the graduate school and do, accommodate my responsibilities in my new job. At which point you make the argument saying, well, if you're going to be having these new responsibilities, there's no better time to actually go back to graduate school and gain some tools for that. But again, it's kind of focusing on, wait a minute, we have a process. That didn't fall logically into what our process is. Well, guess what? That doesn't happen all the time. So again, to think about deadlines, here's another example too. I've seen information sessions that kind of the standard is, having them at lunch or having them in the evenings or Saturday mornings. I'm seeing more and more programs do them during breakfast. I've seen schools, in fact, University of Maryland, their professional MBA program, and again, I apologize, but all my examples, since that's where I focus on, are from that world, but again, apply across the board, where the director there told me that they actually do more one-on-one. They'll just show up at a Starbucks and send an email out to their prospective students and say, hey, we'll be at the Starbucks from this time to this time, come meet with us. He has found that a lot more effective in terms of attendees and results. So I guess what I'm saying here is don't be afraid to do something different, to, just try something new and see how it works. What's the worst that can happen? And that's the whole thing with analytics and measuring. You see how it works, you see what the results are, and if it doesn't work, you try something different. Okay. And then the third point here, the importance of emotions and thinking about your marketing collateral across the board, the website, the blogs. Again, I went to the MBA fair, there was print materials there. Does it speak to the heart or the mind? Okay, and just thinking about that. Okay. So again, this is where I come into my fun part with examples. So thinking about emotions, here's an example of a couple Facebook and Twitter postings that really spoke to that. I love particularly on the right, SMU Cox School of Business. Okay, they didn't just take a couple students and show them in an accounting class. We all know that accounting is part of business school experience. You know, that's standard, that's across the board. They actually showed two students who, you know, came for the degree, met, and got married. And that is really cool. And that kind of speaks to kind of my belief, again, of there's different reasons and emotional reasons that play into part of why motivate somebody, particularly on the graduate level, to go back and get a graduate degree. You know, I've seen prospective students that have become empty nesters, and it just seemed like the right time to do it. So I'm not advocating, please, not saying this by any matter of means that yes, you're going to go to, you know, get an MBA to get married. That's not what I'm saying at all. But just saying that, recognizing it's, you know, going back to being human. It's one aspect of their life. It is not just the studies. It's the personal. It's, you know, showing the fun, showing, you know, pictures and visuals and stories about the extracurricular activities that happened. I saw a posting for, I'm trying to remember what institution. I think it must have been, it could have been University of Iowa Executive MBA program. And they showed a student in a cockpit with his son. It's like when he's not in class, he's flying. You know, it's that kind of cool. Make them human, make them relatable. So when prospective students are looking at your institution, they want to say, gosh, these are the kind of people I want to hang out with. I already know that the faculty are outstanding. I already know that the reputation of the school is great. You know, I have all these other schools that fall into the same category. But here's just something extra that makes me attracted to your institution. Okay. So here we have another quote from our friend, Mr. Shakespeare, and just a couple things stood out on this one. Swift as a shadow, brief as the lightning. Okay, what is that talking about? The importance of being fast, the importance to be quick. Sound familiar to what we all work with in higher ed, the need to be fast, do things even faster than we already are? Okay, so what's our takeaway lesson here? Ta-da, we need to be fast. Okay. We know this. You only have a matter of seconds to capture attention on a web page. So how will you be doing that? How are you going to make it interesting and engaging and informative and entertaining to capture attention of somebody who can easily click out, go somewhere else? Okay. Again, students have a lot of choices. How will you stand out? What is your unique value proposition? And I would encourage you to think of this as a way to really kind of push the envelope a little bit further. You know, I read see a lot of websites, and a lot of them say world-class faculty. Everyone has world-class faculty. You know, small classes. Everyone has small classes. What's something a little bit different? Or how can you say that in a different way that's going to resonate? And again, taking it a little bit further. Okay, we have small classes. Okay, but why? Why is that important to you? You know, this is what happens when you have smaller classes. These are the benefits. Again, not just the features, but the benefits of having that, and really showing a unique value proposition. And I think also one of the challenges is that we have, if you want to become a doctor, you have to go to medical school. If you want to be a lawyer, you got to go to medical school. For a lot of other things, including undergraduate, if you want to be a businessman, you don't have to get an MBA. You know, we know with the examples of celebrities in terms of business with Mark Zuckerberg and certainly Bill Gates, you know, you don't necessarily need degrees to do well. And so, you know, people are, my kids tell me that all the time when I reinforce education. Well, look at this person, he didn't do it. You know, this usually comes after a discussion about grades and a report card. But, you know, how are you going to say that this is worth the experience? This is what the benefits are. This is what you bring to it. Okay. And you can't talk about quickness and being fast these days without bringing up social media. And again, we could have a whole nother presentation about social media, but I just encourage you now to think of it as an engagement tool, not as a broadcast tool. Okay, it's all about, again, that inbound marketing, engaging with people, having conversations, and again, the speed at which to do it. And best practices are, if you're going to post something and somebody's going to reply back to that, to be quick and be prompt in terms of engaging with them. Okay, so here are a couple examples that I pulled up. Again, from the business school world. I love what the Tippy MBA at University of Iowa did here. So innovative. And actually, I saw some articles in the press about this. Get a 24-hour admissions decision. really responding to the needs of prospective students that are looking at different programs, trying to make a decision, trying to plan ahead. Again, we're always focused on what we need, and I certainly have been there for, I need all your materials so I can get them to the admissions committee, and then we have to, get it to the registrar's office and all of that. But again, not to lose sight of the focus of the prospective student and what they're going through. And it's not an easy process. And I've seen lately that a lot of admissions requirements have adjusted accordingly, eliminating essays, maybe not having any at all. I think Tippy doesn't have it for this program, don't quote me on that, but also reducing them to 1 essay instead of having 4. But again, this sense of speed and being responsive, which certainly for millennials in today's world, far different when I grew up, of we want it now, we want an answer now. I sent you a tweet, did you not get it? Did you not respond right away? And then similar here with Carlson at the University of Minnesota. What a neat way to get more people to attend information sessions, attend our event, and receive a decision in 24 hours. So I thought that was cool there. Okay, again, just an example here of overcoming hurdles, application fees. If it's $100 for a program, but you're applying to 5 programs, that adds up. So here's a way that Texas Christian University had something for an application fee waiver. And look at the fun way, too, they presented it. It wasn't just text, we will give you that. They actually made it look like a check. And again, this is what I'm talking about in terms of content and also the importance of design to capture attention. So, another one. The course of true love never did run smooth. Anyone who has a teenager in the house can relate to this line. I'm just saying. Okay, so what does it mean for the rest of us? Okay. I would say recruiting students is a bit like dating. I'm serious about that. It really is. Okay. It doesn't always run smoothly. Challenges include other suitors, namely universities, programs, certainly online. That's opened up a whole kettle of new possibilities for prospective students. I know regional programs that particularly competed just regionally are now facing increasing challenges from online and other programs that are kind of establishing satellite offices in their area. So it's a much tougher environment than it was before. Okay, and also the constraints of time and money. I think those are the big ones, the hurdles of, gee, don't have time, certainly on the graduate level. How can I find time to do this? How can I pay for it? I worked with somebody once, we're really wanting to get them on board. And he was interested, but his wife just finished law school, and he just didn't want to. And of course, this was right after, the financial collapse in 2008, 2009, and just couldn't swing it at the time. So again, messaging that speaks to those challenges and how that can help. Examples, student blogs, alumni blogs of how they manage their time to actually make it work. Maybe even a calendar of a day of, day in the life of, 7 a.m. to whatever time at night. This is how we made it work. I even remember, I thought this would make a great blog. I was coming out of my office one night, and an executive student was sitting in the lobby. We had a couple tables set up with his kids and his wife, and they were eating Chick-fil-A. It was a way for them to all have dinner together before he had to go to a team meeting. So again, like telling those stories, the things that we kind of take for granted we might see. I always encourage you to be journalists and reporters and just watch everything, see everything that happens, and think about it as an opportunity to translate that and tell a story in your blog and in your communications on your website. And again, above all, need to create an exceptional experience through remarkable marketing and relationship building. And I kind of joke, again, it's like dating. How are you going to get them to the altar? How are you going to get them to say, I do? And you do that through incredible content that stands out, that makes a connection, that speaks to emotions, that's memorable, that creates characters of your community, to build that closer relationship and get them to form a commitment, if you will, to your organization. Okay, and then also to create messaging that's influential and aspirational. So a couple examples here. Love what UT Dallas did. This is back in around Valentine's Day, and what I should have done is I should have put the link here, but we would have been running out of time anyway to play the video. But the messaging, we know that you're the one for us, here's why. It makes me think of that movie Grease way back. Anyway, I'm getting off tangent here, but why do you love UT Dallas? That was kind of fun. And then I really love this one from Pepperdine. Again, it's making that connection. What do students want? They want that degree. They're so eager to have that. So look at the messaging here. Your name, MBA, sounds good, doesn't it? And then they, it's really invitation to attend the webinar. They are not just saying, come to our webinar and sign up here. It's, this is why you want to come to the webinar, and this is what's in it for you, and imagine what can happen. And also, I think it's just cool with this image of a diploma to visualize that. And I think if you could take it one step further, I think it'd be really cool to have a prospect's name on that. Although my guess is probably the legal department wouldn't really be too happy with that. But that's kind of been an idea in the back of my head. I think that'd be really cool to do. Okay. So finally, I think this is our last line. And though she be little, she is fierce. Okay. So what can we take away from this line? Number one, you don't have to be at the top of the rankings to attract students. I think we all tend to, I know I've done this, suffer from if-only syndrome. You're in your offices, you're trying to meet enrollment goals, and trying to do what you need to do, and you think, if only, and you have almost rankings envy. Gosh, the school at the top of the rankings, and their life must be so easy. Well, guess what? Their life isn't easy, because they also have different challenges, and so you really can attract top students wherever you are. And even if you are at the top of the rankings, guess what? They're never static. They keep moving. And there's so many different rankings out there that even if you're at the top of the one, you're at a different one at the top of another one. I had a student once, this is going way back when I worked in England, came into my office with a copy of the Financial Times and the rankings and said, point blank, why is your institution here? And why is the other institution I'm looking at, above 10 points, So again, I think we get really kind of consumed, and understandably, because there's so much out there, and there's certainly a powerful proof point for candidates. But again, to be a little creative. And one thing I noticed, and I'll show you a little bit later, of different ways you can kind of play with rankings. Not play, that's the wrong word, I got to be careful here, but different ways you can kind of address this issue. Okay, the other takeaway lesson: you don't have to have a large army of marketing staff to get results. Again, that if only I had more people, if only I could get this, if only I could get that. You know what? Even when you get more people, what happens? You have a larger staff, there's more work comes your way. So I just want to be encouraging here to say that, you can make progress, you can do a lot with the staff that you have, probably more than you think. And it can be at little expense or even no expense. Case in point, blogs. Get your students to, they love writing blogs. Get your alums to write blogs. Have an employer write one to show a proof point. Another way to do this is kind of repurposing content. That's a great way to get your message across. Here's an example right here. If you have a lot of blogs, put them together in an ebook and have candidates access it through a landing page, so you can track prospects coming to see you. Take the blogs that you've written and take some lines out and post them on social media. So again, there's a lot of ways to kind of get more bang for the buck, so to speak. Okay. And really, again, being encouraging. I was thinking it's kind of ironic, because when I think back to Shakespeare, some of his plays, certainly Romeo and Juliet, you don't think of necessarily having happy endings, and I'm trying to be uplifting and hopeful here, but the story is you can attract more students through great storytelling, and really turn your enrollment goals from a midsummer nightmare, a lot of sleepless nights, to a dream. So here's the example I wanted to show you right here about rankings. I just happened to see this today. Excuse me. UVA Darden School of Business. They just posted, hey, we've been named the happiest city in America. And so they posted it on there. So again, look at all the different, there's so many different ones out there. I just saw also Forbes yesterday, the 23rd, did an article on the best cities for job growth. That'd be a great thing to put on your website, on social media, to attract students. And if you're curious, I didn't have a little post to show you, but number 1, Naples, Florida. Number 2, Austin. And just some other examples, if there's anyone from these areas on the call, on this webinar right now. Dallas, Texas. Raleigh was number 7, Houston was number 9, and San Antonio was number 10. Quite a few in Texas. Okay, so we're just wrapping up here. So again, to bring it kind of full circle, messaging that lasts for the ages equals content that informs and entertains. Okay, and this is just a little humorous cartoon I found in Shakespeare in the 21st century. To blog or not to blog? That is the question. Whoever knew that Shakespeare was an inbound marketer ahead of his time? Okay. So this is my little thank you page. And I'll skip over this in the interest of time. And as Brenda had mentioned, we really are hoping you are able to attend our Higher Education Marketing Conference. That will take place in October 13th to 15th in Nashville. It's going to be fabulous. Great city, great event, great speakers, including, as featured here, I think I have her title right, the head of education, higher ed education, I think I have that right, I'll have to ask Brenda and Becky to confirm, at Google, plus a whole lot of other people. I'll be doing a session, and since I like to do themes, I'll be doing about what you can learn about marketing from country music, seeing that it's going to be in Nashville. But click on the link, look at the different speakers. I know I've done that when I'm looking at conferences. You look through it, and maybe you're on the fence, but you see somebody and you think, wow, this really connects to what I need and things I need to look into for my organization. So we hope you will do that, and hope you will be able to join us then. So here we are. I think we have, I'm sorry, I thought I was going to end up a little bit sooner, but we have, it looks like about 5 minutes. So would love to take any questions that you have, and if we don't get to them all, happy to address them afterwards. So Brenda or Becky?
Great job. Thanks so much, Barbara.
My pleasure.
Let me jump in and take a look at some questions. If you have a chance, put your questions in the chat box there within the webinar. Looks like we've got a couple coming in already. So the first question, I'm interested in learning more about content marketing. Can you share some resources?
Absolutely. I tend to be a voracious reader and kind of keep my pulse closely on works that are published on the industry in a higher ed, and I just happened to come across a couple great articles, and I can always send the links afterwards, but one I would really encourage you to check out called The Content Marketing Revolution. It was published on July 1st in the Harvard Business Review blog network. And again, it's a little bit directed towards the corporate world, but certainly applies to the higher ed, a lot of the same concepts. Gives a little bit idea why it's so important, why it works, and the results for that. And then actually somebody who works at the University of Iowa, and I think he works for the Marketing Academy there. He wrote a blog, Making Content Work. His name is Jason Corpus, C-O-R-P-U-S. And again, reference that Harvard Business Review article, but talks about content marketing, and which I thought was really powerful here, reports that one of the benefits of it, it also has a really cool infographic that explains why it works, it costs 62% less than traditional marketing, yet per dollar spent it generates 300% more leads. Not a bad metric there.
Yeah, I'd say that's great.
Yep.
Cool. So another question. I think this one's really common. I know that I can relate to it even just on our side of things. We don't seem to have enough staff in our department to write all of the content we'd like to produce and create that really quality content. Can you give us some examples of how we can maybe stretch it to do some more?
Yeah, absolutely. One thing too, couple things is, as I was mentioning earlier, to kind of enlist volunteers, get students, get alumni. They love to talk about what they've accomplished and what they've done. Have them write some blogs, turn over your social media postings one day to another driver, to a current student, faculty, get them involved, have them write something, bring in people, again, for free, who can help out. And I think also, going back to what I said earlier, repurposing content that you already have. There's a lot out there. And sometimes you have to just, roll up your sleeves and dig through, and you'll find it. Maybe it's something that's very compelling and very powerful, but it's kind of, in the background. It's not on your homepage, for example, and kind of bringing that forward, or, repurposing it into language that's really going to connect or resonate with something that's happening now. I think those are a couple of things that you can do. And also thinking length. You don't have to write novels. With blog posts, does it have to be? I always kind of say you want to challenge the norms. There's no rule of thumb. You don't have to do a blog every single day, and the more you do it, the better results you get for SEO. But maybe you don't have time to do one every week. Do one every 2 weeks. Maybe you don't have time to do a 1,000-word blog. Do a 250-word one. Again, it's just that sense of familiarity and that relationship building of getting your name out there and having prospects see that communication on a regular basis. Again, I have a digital library because I follow a lot of business schools for emails and other communications. And I'll tell you what, it really does make a difference. I never ever think, oh gosh, they're sending another email again. What a pain. They've already reminded me about this information session. It actually builds a relationship. And you kind of think, wow, they're really interested in me. So again, with emails too, doesn't have to be long. If you're doing a lead nurturing campaign, could be very short and to the point. But again, that consistent kind of communication and getting your name out there and building that relationship.
Thank you so much, Barbara, and thanks to everyone who has participated in the webinar. We are closing in on our last minute, so I just wanted to take a moment and thank you all for joining us. Remind you of the conference coming up in Nashville. If you are interested in the idea of inbound marketing and how do we make our marketing dollars perhaps stretch and flex in different ways, that conference will be 2 days of jam-packed information for you in relation to how to do that. So we encourage you to join